afternoon in Newcastle, Australia. It is 12 past 2 in the morning in Manchester, England. And this is the only place in the world where players appearing on podcasts never go wrong. And that they don't need press conferences the day later to clarify any comments. All we know is this is the Sideline Chat podcast, the one-stop shop for rugby league. Along with Mark Henry, I'm Connor Marcells, and today it is part one of our 2023 NRL Telstra Premiership previews.
Yes, only a couple months out now. It's getting very, very close.
March 2nd, the earliest start to an NRL season in recent memory. Also the 25th anniversary of the National Rugby League since the end of the Super League War. We've got a lot to get into, so let's get it started. Starting off, the Brisbane Broncos. Well, the biggest story and the biggest choke. I think those two phrases go hand in hand with the other.
I have to agree with you there. Everyone built up the anticipation with the sign of Adam Reynolds and that, but that didn't quite perform as to what everyone expected, really.
Well, I would say they overachieved because that's where the choke part comes in. First two games, everyone, I think, assumed that the Broncos were going to kick on after this. I mean, they lost Adam Reynolds for the first game, we remember, because he was ruled out because of COVID.
Yes.
Then round two, he comes back against Canterbury in a nail-biter, his first game back in Sydney. And everyone thought, oh yeah, the Broncos are a real threat. And then reality slaps them hard in the face. A Jeremiah Nanai hat-trick brings the Broncos back down to earth in round three. And then it just rolls on. Until round 7, they beat the Dogs again in the Anzac round. And then from there, they jumped to 4th on the ladder off a big winning run.
It was a massive winning run, which caught really everyone by surprise to an extent. Not as much, it was a bit of a surprise, but not a big surprise. Though.
They knocked off the Rabbitohs in their first clash in round 9. In the return game, when Adam Reynolds travels to Sydney again, faces the Rabbitohs in the Burrow, and the Broncos just tell them a new one. And then the week later at Magic, they blitz Manly 38-0. And then
but it was Manly too.
Oh yeah, it was Manly. They just lost Tom Trbojevic then. And so that's a rotten luck at the
home
shoulder
away from home game, you could say, for him, because it was an away game.
This was the Broncos out of nowhere. Like the Cowboys, the Broncos had shot up out of nowhere from obscurity into the top 4.
It did. They seriously did. And
we were genuinely thinking, surely Kevy couldn't do it in his second year in charge with Adam Reynolds, guide the Broncos back into the finals. And the top 4.
Yeah, it really did look like it. And everyone was like, ooh, okay, this is a bit of a contender that we didn't think was going to happen at the start of the season. But then there's a big, massive but.
Yes, there certainly was. After demolishing the Eels 36-14 at CommBank Stadium, that's when the wheels started to fall off. Because they lost to the Tigers, they lost to the Roosters, they lost to the Eels bigly, 53-6. Jesus Christ. But this was an implosion. From the heights of making it to 4th on the ladder, and then that steady couple of bumps that lose to Melbourne, lose to North Queensland in back-to-back weeks in highly competitive games.
But the surprising loss was the Tigers one, though.
They shouldn't have lost that game.
No.
But they implode beyond belief. 16-12 loss to Melbourne, and then, of course, losing to St. George Illawarra 22-12, right on round 25 when there was still 8th spot up for grabs. This was an implosion of epic proportions.
Yes, and then it's put the pressure on Kevin Walters. Well, pretty much when they started declining, the pressure was building on Kevin Walters, but he's still there for this season. How long is he going to last? We just don't know.
But it's a disappointing end to a season where it was a real turnaround. Corey Oates. Everyone was writing Corey Oates off thinking he had to go. All of a sudden, he's amongst the top 5 try scorers once again and earns an Origin recall.
Yep.
Herbie Farnworth, he had a first half blitz before being ruled out with injury at the back end. Still managed to recover for the World Cup for England.
Which is quite remarkable because he has got potential.
Tamare Martin, the comeback story of the year.
Mm-hmm.
He was out of the game dealing with a bleed on the brain. He's gotten over it, and he's gotten back into the top flight, where he excelled at fullback.
He certainly did, and it was a magnificent story to see. I really liked that he was able to come back and play rugby league.
That is what rugby league. Sorry, but that is what rugby league is all about.
And we saw what he was capable of when he was playing for the Cowboys. And then they said, "Oh, he had to
medically
retire due to bleed on the brain." Oh, well, that's very disappointing because he had potential. He's come back like he hasn't had any time off. Well, at the time.
He was playing domestic rugby league in New Zealand. Then they finally resolved the issue with the bleed on the brain. Come back into first grade. And it's like, this is a feel-good story you want to have.
I think it's one of the best ones in 22.
And then, of course, there was optimism with the blooding of new talent. Selwyn Cobbo kicking on from 2021, I should say. I was about to say last year. Jesus Christ. Ezra Mam. How good was Ezra Mam at 5'8"?
Yes, but he had the experience of Adam Reynolds there too, which would have helped him
and
a lot too.
Adam Reynolds, I would have to say, even though despite finishing the year in 9th and with a winning record, which is something the Broncos haven't had for some time, Adam Reynolds was easily the best player. 6 tries, 19 try assists, 993 run meters, 27 tackle breaks, 3 line breaks, 9 offloads, 15 goal line dropouts, and 61 from 72 goals converted. But him missing game time and Pat Carrigan at the back end when he was missing for 4 games, that hurt Brisbane big time.
It certainly did, and I have to say, speaking of Pat Carrigan, he had probably one of his best season in his career.
Wally Lewis medalist as well. So
yes.
What a fine achievement for him. And there's also this debate amongst Brisbane fans. Why don't they start Cobra Hetherington at lock? Because you got Carrigan and you got Hetherington, 2 very good locks in their own right. But we saw the difference with what I was missing, and Carrigan wasn't there. So in my mind, Pat Carrigan is the Broncos lock forward.
Yes.
End of story. And we'll get more onto the roster and round 1 on predictions very soon. But let's take a look at how the Broncos are going to start 2023 with a 17th team in the NRL. How kind has the league been to them? Well, round 1 against the 2-time defending premiers away.
Yeah, that's not a good start. Very not a good start indeed.
Well, of course the Broncos have the most telecast games on Channel 9 again. That's no lie. They want the Brisbane market, but it's just like, fuck you. We're going to put you up against the premiers first up.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have thrown the Tigers to the walls again, but I suppose it's like that. Oh, and then it gets better. Round 2, they're at home for the first time against the Cowboys in
who made the playoffs.
Queensland derby.
Who ended up finishing 3rd on the ladder last year, yes.
So we'll screw you over again by having the team in 3rd on the ladder go up against you. Round 4 up against St George Illawarra, so that at least they get back-to-back home games and a possibility of a win for a one.
Yes.
And then they'll be at home again.
For the Brisbane derby, the first ever
The Battle of Brisbane, they have officially coined this at, up against the Dolphins.
I mean, that should be a win for for Brisbane coming against a new club, but you never know.
On April Fool's Day, they will play the West Tigers at home again, so maybe the Tigers win that one as well. I don't know, but
who knows?
But I think I'll hear you out here because I know what you're thinking. Hang on, Mark, Connor, you just said they'll be away at the Panthers and then away at the Dolphins, but the Dolphins play at Suncorp. Yes, that is right.
Yes.
Regardless of having one reciprocal away game against the Dolphins, the Broncos will have a full month at home in Brisbane.
Yes.
Which that could play well into their advantage right there, that they don't have to travel as far as any other club in the opening 5 rounds.
Yeah, like the first had to travel was down to Penrith, which is out in Western Sydney. So
the only time they have to leave Queensland, aside from round 1, will be round 8 against the Eels in Darwin. That's the only time the Broncos in 2 months.
It's still not that far. Well, it's fair distance. I think Sydney Parramatta might be closer, but still.
But they'll be in Darwin for that game in round 8. But imagine having that advantage of playing 6 of your opening 8 games in Queensland.
So that's the NRL being kind to him in that sort of way,
It's a catch-22.
but it's the opponents
We're
that
going to give you 6 games in Queensland against the Dolphins and the Titans, as well as hosting some games, but you're going to open in your first fortnight against the Panthers and the Cowboys.
2 finalists from last year. Well, the grand final winners.
The Premiers
and the grand...
prelims.
Yes.
But we'll see how that one plays out, because it's a fresh year, everyone's on a fresh start, and who knows, maybe they could catch the Panthers with World Cup hangover. I highly doubt
I highly doubt too.
that in that instance, but at least maybe 3 wins from the first 5.
Possibly.
Now, roster rotation, of course, the Broncos, another real clean out at Red Hill. And some interesting recruitment choices. Albert Kelly leaving for the Dolphins. He'll join their Host Plus Cup side, right, with possibility of a top 30 promotion. And the Dolphins need slots to fill.
I believe that was like a lifeline contract for Albert Kelly. Am I right?
I believe that was the case. Brenko Lee also going the way of the Dolphins. Jermaine Asako joining the Dolphins after being released partway through to link up with the Titans. Tyson Gamble joining the Newcastle Knights, as well as Tessie New also joining the Dolphins. Zach Hosking let go to the Penrith Panthers. Tyrone Roberts undetermined in where he's going to end up. Ryan James has retired. Reece Kennedy's left for Hull KR. David Mead has retired. Jake Turpin joining the Sydney Roosters. And in the recent days, Carl Oloapu, I think I got that one right, has been released after several weeks of negotiations to join the Canterbury Bulldogs.
Yes, and Tamari Martin also went to the Warriors.
Yes, Tamari Martin to the Warriors.
And on the Sony front, though, they got Jesse Arthurs back from his loan deal. Jock Madden signing off from the West Tigers. Martin Powell from the Seagulls. And Reece Walsh coming back home.
As well as that, Tyson Smoothy joining from the Melbourne Storm, currently on the development list at the moment, with possibility of top 30 promotion, though I think the Broncos have all their roster spots filled. And Tristan Saylor also linking up from South Logan Magpies, possibility of either a development or a top 30 contract to compensate for Tessie New's loss.
Yes, we just have to wait and see what happens officially there.
I really like the signing of Marty Tapau.
Same.
Of course, there was all the drama with the salary cap, and there's ongoing concerns with the collective bargaining agreement at the moment. But I really like the fact that the Broncos went ahead for Marty Tapau, because TC Rabati's currently stood down, pending criminal or his day in court, essentially. And Cobry Hetherington has been ruled out indefinitely with ongoing injury. So having Marty Tapau's experience and his offload is a very good welcome at Red Hill.
It is a very much needed welcome there. He's got, like you said, plenty of experience, and it's a relatively young squad, you could say. Like they
need an old head in the forward pack, and I think Marty will be very much a welcome sight.
Yes, they'll be glad to have Jesse Arthurs back. I think he can add some speed out wide there in the centres.
Well, I don't know. I think Katoni, Staggs and Herbie Farnworth are the first choice, so it'd be really hard-pressed to try and find a spot for Arthurs in that back 5 at Brisbane.
But still, even if one of them are down, injured or suspended or in rep rounds, he's right there ready to go.
Well, I think the only concerns and out wide would probably be Selwyn Cobbo, Corey Oates and Katoni Staggs at Origin if they do get picked. But
if they do.
If Latrell Mitchell and Tom Drabojevic are fit, they're not going to get a look in.
No. And then Reece Walsh coming back home after the drama of how he left Brisbane to go to New Zealand.
Yeah.
He's coming back home. So I don't know what changed Brisbane's fortune. Changed Brisbane's mind, though.
A lot of factors. Of course, we all will think money is the first reason why that the Broncos were going to offer him more to return. But not so. Apparently, the Dolphins were prepared to offer him more, but he was barred from negotiating with them. Same story with Carl Oloapu. He was forbidden to negotiate or even sign with the Dolphins.
Which I find wrong, because if you want to go to that club, why can't you negotiate with them? I know they're going to be the new rival for Brisbane, or one of the bigger rival, because Battle of Brisbane, as you said earlier. But if they want to go to Dolphins, why not sign with Dolphins? Because they've still got a heap of money that they need to meet the minimum
Yeah.
for the salary cap. Not the maximum, the minimum.
That's exactly right. I think it's 3/4 of the cap they have to spend.
Yes.
One solution I've heard, they might actually consider front-loading contracts to free up more salary cap space for 2024 and 5.
Okay.
So think of it that way. If you're going to front-load Jesse Bromwich, and, well, really, both the Bromwiches, Felice Kafusi, if you're going to front-load their contracts, all of a sudden, you'll have a war chest for every single superstar coming off contract between 2024 and 2025.
But I don't believe they've got a top 30 squad yet.
Well, they need to
Which
get
is
that
the issue.
sorted. But they got a lot of players on train and trial contracts, so they
Which
could easily make a decision on all the players there are on train and trial, and then they can make a decision how they want to use their host plus side with Redcliffe and their NRL side, the Dolphins.
Yeah. We are slightly going off topic of teams, but anyway. It's
One big concern I do have over the Broncos, though, apart from the experience, the hooker department.
Yeah, losing Jake Turpin, that's a big one. That kind of
This only leaves them 2.
Billy Walters.
And Corey Pace.
Yes.
You look at every other side. Like last year, it was all the talk about who's signing halfbacks. You look at the Sharks, you look at the Cowboys, you look at the Raiders. All 3 of them made the finals. Brisbane could have made the finals as well. But the common denominator was they sorted out the priorities of getting a good halfback, and it all reaped dividends. Canberra in the semi-finals, the Sharks in the semi-finals, and the Cowboys in the prelim.
Yep.
This year, I think it's going to be whoever signs the best hookers. In this case, I'm already looking at the Bulldogs and I'm looking at the Tigers because they prioritise signing a hooker.
Yes.
And I think we'll see at least one of them benefit. But who? Well, stay tuned. But that's my concern with Brisbane. You look at Parramatta, they're in that same category as their Western Sydney counterparts. Signing a hooker, it could backfire on them, but it could not. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Now, last year, the Broncos narrowly missed out on the finals, finishing in 9th. Where do we see them finishing in 2023?
I'm going to say it already. It's going to be tight this season. Like, you think last season was tight. I reckon it's going to be that logjam again to get
There's
into
a logjam every year.
Yes, but I think it's going to be a lot earlier on this year. Instead of being about mid-season, I think it'll be about like maybe around 7 or 8. It's going to be a logjam straight from there.
So you're calling it like 2018 season all over again, where there was literally 4 points separating 1st and 8th on the ladder.
Pretty much. A lot earlier on instead of like on the back end of the middle of the season. But the signings are good, especially like with Martin Tapau coming in. And just don't know how Reece Walsh will go at fullback. We just had to wait and see how he goes. But I think Brisbane will probably just miss out again. Probably just miss out in 9th again.
So you reckon 9th
2 years
again?
in a row. Yeah, 2 years in a row.
Besides the hooker question, I think the culture question has also come up. Of course, Selwyn Cobbo going on that podcast, making those comments about Kevin Walters, and then, of course, the defense had to be run later in it. How can you have a side like that if you've got players is basically saying, oh, yeah, Kevy's not a good coach?
But you can't just do that. You can't bag the coach out. The coach can only do so much. The performance on the field comes down to the players. So it kind of works both ways in a way.
It's a two-way street, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you just need to cut that attitude out and focus.
And you'd think with good leaders up in Brisbane that wouldn't have happened. But I think there's a couple of questions that the Broncos still need to sort out before they can crack into the finals. I did say last year they will play finals under Adam Reynolds' leadership because, let's be fair,
everyone thought that
this is practically his last contract. So if they don't make the finals this year, they have to do it next year before he retires.
Yes.
They're not going to do it this year, I reckon. In my opinion, the Broncos will go from 9th last year to finishing 11th this year. I think there's a couple of questions. Reece Walsh, Ezra Mann, and I just think they still need a year to put it all together.
Yeah, fair enough.
Now, from sides that narrowly missed out on the finals, that made it as far as the semis. Yes, the Canberra Raiders, everyone's favourite team from the nation's capital. Or not really, but...
Maybe second favourite team, you could say. Potentially.
The Raiders, the enigma of rugby league, I think, at this point in time. Because we expected the Raiders, especially in recent times, to really push for the finals. And they keep disappointing us every couple of years. 2021 was not a good year for Canberra, so they had to go and address some concerns right there. They did that, signing Jamal Fogarty. I said it was a good idea, would get them into the finals.
Yep.
Not the best start they could have, losing Fogarty early, and then basically 2-8 to start the year.
Yeah, I seriously thought the same thing, that Jamal Fogarty would be the best signing for...
3-7. Oh, actually... 4-6 after round 10. They were 4-6, but
I thought Jamal Fogarty would be a really good signing for him. He'd be able to control the plays and let Jack Whiten do his thing. But like you said, injury didn't quite help that. But then when he did come back, he wasn't, I don't think, quite up to scratch and not quite up to standard as I thought he could have been with the Raiders. But you never coming back from injury is always hard.
It is. But even then, in the early 10 rounds, and they got mauled by the Cowboys and by the Storm, and then there were the games against the Warriors and Penrith as well, obviously. But the games against the Warriors, well, they should have won that game. They should have won that game. Losing to Manly, that's Daly Cherry Evans just screwed them over big time.
Yep.
But it was after that round 10 clash against the Sharks at Magic where it started to turn. Because we all thought the Sharks were going to walk over the top of the Raiders at that point, and then it was just like Canberra flicked the switch, and then they just turned it on.
And that's when they kind of run, well, I don't know how much of a run, but they kind of kicked their season into gear. And they went, I think they had more wins than losses from then onwards.
Well, they still had a couple of hiccups here and there, but they were more competitive than what they had been. For Ogley got game time. A smart move, moving Joe Tarpany from the lock forward to the prop role.
Yep.
That really did Tarpany a world of good. But Hudson Young, how did he not get picked for Origin? I think that's an honest question.
I think he was very close to getting picked for Origin, but just missed it out, unfortunately.
He went very close. And Zach Wolford, he was like the third string dummy half at the Raiders 2 years ago. Hodgson goes down. Starling has a little bit of off-field drama, and then Wolford comes and it's just like,
hello.
Yeah, you're the hooker now.
Yeah.
Like your father before you just walked in and it's like, this kid's good.
But this year he'll be the second backup one.
I think he's still going to be the first choice. We'll see how that one plays out. But they knocked off Melbourne in Melbourne. How many times have you heard that happen?
I think Canberra's the only team that can win against Melbourne in Melbourne.
Well, Parramatta did it in round
3.
but
I think Canberra are the more consistent team that can win in Melbourne against Melbourne.
I think the Raiders, since 2020, they've actually had a pretty healthy record down in Melbourne at the moment.
I think so. One of very few teams that have a positive record.
Well, it was the Sharks between 2016 and 18. It's now the Raiders since then.
Yes. Which is unbelievable. But it shows what they are capable of. They just need to try and do it that little bit more consistently, and they can just get to that grand final again and hopefully win it again.
A 4-game winning run, and the benefit of the Broncos' choke, they were able to scrape into 8th on the ladder after a big win against the West Tigers when everyone thought, what if they tripped up against the Tigers? Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was not going to happen whatsoever.
And then they did it against Melbourne again. The Falcon that sent them to the semi-finals.
Yeah, I mean, and to knock out Melbourne in the finals, it's just ridiculous. Like, you don't see Melbourne get knocked out in the finals that early.
That was the first time in 8 years that Melbourne had ever been knocked out in week 1 of the finals.
It's usually week 3 they get knocked out if they don't make the grand
Ricky's
final.
Raiders, maligned, written off as chokers, essentially, because of the games they lose rather than the games they won. Like, they beat Saps. They beat Melbourne. How can you tell me this Canberra side is not quality?
They've got the potential. Like I said, they've got the potential, but they just can't quite get there over like some of the critical games, you could say.
Yeah, they have the tendencies. They perform in the big games, but against the lesser opponents, they struggle.
Yeah.
From time to time, that does happen. But really got knocked off in the semi-finals against the Eels, who were on a fairy tale story of their own.
They were on a fairy tale story of their own, but you can't win them all, unfortunately. But
I think it's a remarkable achievement. From 4-6, at the beginning of May, mid-May, they were running 10th on the ladder. A bit of fluctuation, 11th, 10th, 9th, and then they climbed into 8th on the ladder. I would say they would take that over what they had in 2021, where they just finished
easy.
in 10th.
Yeah, they would have easily had, like, taken this last season a lot better than what they did.
But give them credit. They only lost, as is my very loose counting mechanism goes, they only lost 4 times after round 10. So that's a
very
massive
solid.
turnaround in form.
Massive.
But 4 and against just kept them away from the top 8 until the very last weeks.
Yes, but that had some luck on their side too.
And not since round 9 had they lost back-to-back games up until the... Well, yeah, they hadn't lost back-to-back games since round 9, so that's another positive as well.
It's just a slow start to the season. I think that would have cost them going that deep, like, higher up in the top 8.
Joe Tarpany, no questions, he was the Raiders' best.
Yeah.
Best last year. 2
Although-
tries, 3 try assists, 4,215 run meters, 77 tackle breaks, 4 line breaks, and 47 offloads.
I reckon second best stat would have been Hudson Young.
I'd agree with that. Hudson Young had a very good year, and he was practically a try-scoring weapon out on the left edge for Canberra.
Was that Johnny Bateman's old spot?
No, right side.
Right side.
Right side. I think Corey Hawira-Naira or Elliot... Well, no, actually, Elliot Whitehead will be the right edge back row, as he was before.
Yeah.
And I think Corey Hawira-Naira will move into the lock forward role moving forward. Now, 2023 for Canberra. They'll be back in Townsville for round 1, up against the Cowboys.
That could be a fiery clash.
Pending Jamal Fogarty actually plays in round 1, unlike last year.
Why has he got injured this time again?
No, just in case he gets injured again.
Oh, right.
But I don't think he will. Round 2, a trip to KO Stadium, Redcliffe to take on the Dolphins.
Might as well camp up there for the week.
I reckon they will. They'll just set up base in Townsville, and then they'll probably just travel down on the Redcliffe after that. Round 3, first home game in the nation's capital, up against the Sharks.
That'll be an absolute blockbuster match, I reckon.
These Raiders-Sharks clashes. We all know that the Raiders really can upset the Sharks.
Oh, yes.
Regardless of who's got the better side on paper.
And what ground it's at, too.
The Sharks don't like playing Canberra in Canberra. That's
exactly.
Then a trip up to Newcastle in
But
round 4.
That should be an easy win for Canberra.
We'll see about that. I still have good raps on Jackson Hastings, and we'll talk more about it in 2 weeks' time. And finally, in round 5, back home against the Premiers.
That's going to be a tough game for
This
them.
is a game the Raiders need to be able to win. It's the top 2 sides they need to be able to beat.
Yeah.
The Panthers won, and I would probably say the Eels are the other, because they can handle the Sharks, they need to be able to beat the Cowboys, and they are storm specialists.
Yes. So really, their first, the Cowboys will be a good test for them as well. But Penrith is a really critical one that they have to win. If they can knock off Penrith, I think they'll be in for a good season in Canberra.
It would really do a good boost to their credentials if they can knock the Panthers off early. And like I said, we'll talk more about World Cup hangover when it comes time, but this will really be a good opportunity for the Raiders to catch the Panthers early.
Yes.
Now, there is that question again in the roster rotation. Well, Josh Hodgson has finally made a decision. He will move to the Parramatta Eels to play for the Blue and Gold. Old Ryan Sutton will leave to join the Canterbury Bulldogs. Harry Rushton returned home to play for the Huddersfield Giants after being released from his contract midway through. Chance Nickel-Klukstad making the move back to New Zealand, linking up with the Warriors. And Adam Elliott to join the Newcastle Knights.
And on the signing front, Pasami Saula from Newcastle and Danny Lee from Huddersfield Giants.
Now that's the question. 3 hookers in the 1. We all know what Danny Levi was doing at Huddersfield in 2022 when the Giants had that ripper of a year.
Well, even before he went over to Huddersfield, what he was doing over here in the NRL.
I think it was more its time in Super League.
Yeah.
It does apply. Some players, it does a lot of good.
Yeah.
But he has come back in a big way, and I think he's a much different player to the one that left the Broncos probably 24 months prior.
Yes.
Pasami Solo, very good to stiffen up the middle, but I think the question of lock forwards is they don't necessarily have a recognised lock forward at this moment.
They certainly don't, but he could be it. Potentially. Or even coming off the bench. He'll definitely come off the bench, I think.
I think they'll lean more towards Howawira and Naira. I think there's more freedom playing in the middle of the field than there is on an edge.
They're like off the bench, I think Sami Solo will be there. But I don't know. It's hard to get a read on because he doesn't have much game time very often.
Well, the uptake in minutes will always be a big question for any forward who's moving clubs for more opportunity. If he's up for it, he's up for it.
Exactly.
But with Adam Elliott leaving, I thought that could backfire a little bit because he really did get the ball moving in the middle of the field. Who could match it? I think it's only Howawira and Naira. I think is the only option they can do.
Yeah.
Wolford versus Levi, I think I would give Zach Wolford the confidence to start and then have Levi and Starling over his shoulders is for good, healthy competition. But I think ultimately Levi will be the one to miss out early on, and then if injury strikes, he can easily slot in there.
I'd say what they'll be doing in the trials, they'll be rotating the 3 of them across the 2 games and see what happens there and who plays the better one and who starts and who comes off the bench. That'll be a big factor that Ricky Stewart will be watching closely during pre-season.
Because the interesting dynamics with the Raiders is they got 2 hookers that are strong ball runners and only 1 good defensive hooker, Wolford. He is more of the defensive type. He's not the runner. He's most effective when he's getting the forwards onto the ball or standing at marker. He sets up those big crash plays for Tarpany and Papali'i, and he's more all built for defense and really leaves the running to Xavier Savage.
Yes.
That is a name that just went electric.
Yes.
Honestly, it did.
It certainly did. Let's hope he can back that up again this year.
Now, the question is, where do the Raiders finish on the ladder?
Well, they finished where last year? 8th.
Yep, last year 8th and made it as far as the semi-finals.
I reckon they could sneak in and go 6th, I reckon. If they just have a better start to the season than what they did last year and keep it going throughout the whole year, they could sprint a surprise or 2.
The middle of the field will be a big question for me, and I hope that Howawira Naira can succeed at lock forward, having been anointed successor to Adam Elliott, potentially. They can't afford to slip backwards because they had a good year like this. Let's just hope they don't slide backwards. However, I'm convinced with Jamal Fogarty starting the year, the Raiders have a lot of potential, and I think they will have a much better start to this year than they did last. They finished, as I said, 8th, and in the semi-finals, I think they will finish 7th on the ladder, and another finals showdown looms.
There you go. I'm going about going 6th or 7th. I know bugger it goes 6th, but yeah.
Well, but the basic answer is the Raiders will make back-to-back finals appearances once again.
Yes.
Now,
your boys,
the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, the Blue and White Army. Not the best start in 2022.
No. But mid-season, boy, did it turn it around.
A massive recruitment drive by Trent Barrett that saw us net Josh Adokar, Matt Burton on a reasonable price salary of $450,000.
Yeah, imagine what that'd be worth nowadays.
Well, he's got practically a 5-year extension up his sleeve, so he's got a big money upgrade. He's already got his payday.
Yeah, that's if he decides to stay.
He has.
Oh, that's right, he has too. Sorry,
What
my
have
bad.
you been?
My bad.
Are you still in the World Cup mode?
No, I think so.
Where he hasn't signed the contract yet. My God.
Sorry.
I might need to call your therapist up again. But yeah, the big name signings of Burton and Addo-Carr. A lot of optimism was shared about could Canterbury break into the finals for the first time in years.
I personally was on that bandwagon. I said they were going to finish in top 8 last year because of those two signings.
Well,
But I was a little bit wrong.
That didn't happen one single bit. I mean, in the first 10 rounds, we only got 2 wins and 8 losses to our name.
Yeah.
And it cost Trent Barrett bigly.
Yes. Enter Mick Potter.
But
and boy,
just focusing on the first 10 rounds of Roan before focusing on the back, like second half of the season, for the context, we had a narrow escape over the Cowboys in round 1.
I don't know how the hell that happened, but yeah.
We were very lucky either we didn't concede a try within the final 2 minutes. Competitive loss against the Broncos, though I felt we should have won that. 1 point loss to Manly, and then the wheels fell off completely.
Should have beaten Manly.
44-0 loss to Melbourne. 32-12 loss to the Panthers. 36-12 loss to the Rabbitohs on Good Friday. Lost to the Broncos. 36-14 after leading the Broncos for 50 minutes.
Fell asleep.
We actually beat the Roosters somehow.
Yeah, that was a real surprise in that round.
No one saw that fixture coming. It's like, oh God, up against the Roosters, we're going to lose this one. And then sure enough, Addo-Carr has other ideas. And it's just like, wow, we actually got that win against the Roosters.
And what round was that in?
Round 8.
Round 8, yeah. When I saw that, I was like, no, surely I'm seeing things. But no, it actually happened.
We beat the Roosters.
And I thought the Roosters were absolutely going to put a massive scoreline on it.
I was thinking the Roosters would have put a massive scoreline on us.
But yeah, no, the complete opposite happened. It wasn't a massive scoreline, but it still a win.
Couldn't back it up. 14-4 loss to Canberra, and then 16-6 loss in Brisbane to Newcastle, which pretty much sealed Trent Barrett's fate for Mick Potter.
They said bye-bye to Trent.
Yeah, it took practically 3 weeks, but you saw a massive improvement even in those 3 losses under Michael Potter.
Yeah, the attack, like you said, the 3 weeks before those losses under Mick Potter, the attack was like absolutely way better straight away. And they were way more competitive.
And this included that loss to Penrith, where it was like, we just didn't go away. We didn't roll over. It was Origin. They were missing Nathan Cleary. But we were starting to dig in a little bit more than what we had been. And we were really starting to push teams.
Yeah. Which is what really you guys needed.
And Burton Addo-Carr in this time, because Addo-Carr did not score a single try in the first 5 rounds.
Which is unheard of for him.
And then since round 6, he didn't stop scoring tries. It was just like, it was literally like that one guy, it was like, you're picking the Origin side, you're almost like that one guy on the pogo stick outside Brad Fittler's selection. It was like, Freddie, pick me, hat-trick, Freddie, another hat-trick. Come on, let's trot, baby. Blues for 2022. And
did he get like 5 tries in one match before?
No, he didn't.
No,
but that's exactly what was happening. And the fact that he wasn't picked,
that was
criminal. That is absolutely criminal.
Yeah.
Freddie should have had his car left with blue and white streamers draped all across it and just like, yeah, thanks for nothing, Freddie. You didn't pick the fastest man on the planet.
Exactly.
And then the zenith, the final Queen's birthday
match
against the Parramatta Eels, the first time they would play on the Queen's birthday after the Dragons decided they had enough.
Hey, no, that's what the NRL did.
Yeah, because the Dragons said, Ed, we don't like playing on the Queen's birthday. Can you
did
please?
I don't think they actually said that.
I'd like to think something along the lines.
Yeah, of course you do. But how many? You won more Queen's birthday than what we did anyway. So
yes,
which I don't like you for.
But the
But
Eels
anyway.
got absolutely humiliated at a core stadium on this day.
That was another surprise win, you could say.
This was an absolute upset against the eventual grand finalists.
Yes, and your two teams.
Yes, my two teams, but I'm a Canterbury man first. Parramatta comes second.
Yes, I know.
And then from there, against the West Tigers, we performed well. We almost beat the Rabbitohs in the reverse fixture. We were a dead set chance of beating South Sydney.
I think you guys were
in the men of league round.
Yes.
That game was absolutely crazy.
That was a crazy game.
But it was just like it just highlighted how good the Bulldogs were playing. Jake Averillo was a revelation at fullback. Jacob Carraz came onto the scene. And then, of course, as I said, at that left edge, Burton, Addo-Carr, Aaron Shop.
That was getting stronger and stronger. Especially that Burton Addo-Carr. As the season progressed on since Mick Potter came in, that combination of Burton Addo-Carr was getting better and better and better and better.
But from a 2-8 start, despite the fact we copped practically a 6-game a further 3-game losing run, to a further 9 losses, we did actually manage to score enough of a 5 wins than what we initially had.
Yeah. Like I said, you guys were more attacking, was a lot better than what it was. Yes, it might have not produced a lot of wins, but it's just building. Yeah,
we were hanging in for games a lot longer than people gave us credit for. And Matt Burton, reward for effort, not only did he get picked for Origin, when there are certain individuals at the Daily Telegraph saying the Bulldogs are not going to have a single rep player, or a rep career is going to die if you go for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, well, look what happened there.
Yeah, well, that was a very blunt, spoken too soon type of comment, because not only did Burton play for the Blues in State of Origin last year, but he also got picked for Australia, and so did Addo-Carr. So,
exactly.
And, of course, Luke Thompson was picked for England, and despite ongoing concussion issues. So, what was that about rep careers going to die at the Dogs when literally one was born at the Bulldogs? But anyway, best players, these two could not be denied.
Let me guess.
Josh Addo-Carr, 16 tries, 6 try assists, 2,984 run meters, 109 tackle breaks, 17 line breaks, 9 offloads, and a goal line dropout. Yes, he did force a goal line dropout.
Yes. And the other one will be Matt Burton.
6 tries, 14 try assists, majority of them for Addo-Carr. 1,676 run meters, 49 tackle breaks, 8 line breaks, 15 offloads, 18 goal line dropouts, and 50 from 67 goals converted.
How many try assists did you get for Josh Addo-Carr?
Well, I just said 14, but the majority of them were for Addo-Carr.
No, Addo-Carr. How many try assists did he get?
6.
One of them would have been for that one from winner to winner in Newcastle.
Against Newcastle.
That's the
was
first one that comes to mind.
The best try. That was a try of the year. That had to have been a try of the year.
But it wasn't.
The Burton bomb. They regather. Jackson has the ball. You think, he's going to die here. Nope. He offloads. It comes back to Addo-Carr. What's his first instinct? Kick. And it's just like, I was watching that. Sick with COVID, but I was watching that. And it was like, no. And I'm like, yes!
Winner to winger.
That was a super passage of play.
That was
like, I was like, no way. I'm like, wait, that just happened.
Yeah, that was an unbelievable setup. And
that is what the Bulldogs can bring to the NRL. The entertainers. That's who we are.
It just needs to be more consistent than what they have been.
Believe me, I think we're going to be a lot more consistent in 2023.
Speaking of 2023.
Well, the roster, of course, got another clean out again, because Belmore clean outs are a very popular thing along with boards. RSC and Manawatu in recent times. Imes has left back to Super League to link up with the Lee Leopards. Brent Naden left for the West Tigers midway through the season. Corey Allen signed up by the Sydney Roosters. Matt Duffy leaving partway through for the Warrington Wolves. He will join Paul Vaughan over there heading the same way. Matt Dury, he left to join the Parramatta Eels. Unfortunate, to say the least. Joe Stimson linking up with Gold Coast. Jeremy Marshall-King heading for the Dolphins. And Brandon Wakeham ending up at the West Tigers as well. And the really shocking news, Josh Jackson retired.
Which is why you missed the last few episodes of last season, because you were still crying about it, as I mentioned.
I wasn't crying about it.
I know, but that was my excuse of why you weren't there.
Yeah, you're full of shit and you know it. Dick. But it's the good news.
Hey, you missed Jack Hetherington
and
going
Jack
to
Hetherington going
Newcastle.
to the Newcastle Knights.
And I'll let you go through the games
But
because
the
there's some
good
massive
news,
games.
The good news is that we have gone on probably amongst the best free recruitment drives. Reed Marnie joining from the Parramatta Eels. Iliami Kikau linking up from the Panthers. There's Ryan Sutton from the Canberra Raiders. There's Andrew Davey from Manly. New Brown coming back to the club from the West Tigers. Franklin Pele from the Cronulla Sharks. Hayes Perham also joining from the Eels. Jacob Preston from the Roosters. Josh Reynolds from Hull FC, currently on a train and trial deal, but there is still a promise that he could get into the top 30, so who knows? And Carl Oloapu from the Brisbane Broncos, just within recent week alone.
Same with Brendan Wakeham just in recent weeks.
Leaving, not joining.
Sorry, but still, he's leaving there. That's not been announced.
A big coup. Viliami Kikau and
should we
Reed Marnie.
quickly mention who we gained for 2024? That's a big name signing.
We'll talk more about that, but yes, for 2024, signing Stephen Crichton. So there is a genuinely good direction this club is heading
and
in.
And who's helped all that? None other than Phil
Gould.
He's helped with a lot.
He has become the Belmore Messiah.
He's pinching the Panthers.
He's not pinching the Panthers. We're pinching the Eels. We're pinching the Raiders.
Yeah,
Raiders,
but
the
two
Sharks,
big names.
The big 120-kilo wrecking ball by the name of Pele.
But two big names coming across the 2 years, like Kikau this season and Crichton next season. They're two big names that I don't think would have gone to Penrith without gone to the Bulldogs without the influence of Phil Gould.
And the fact that Matt Burton and Cameron Serraldo were already there.
Well, that too, yes.
Now, all these signings, what's going to look forward for the Canterbury Bulldogs? Well, round 1 against the Manly Seagulls at Brookie. A good first-up clash that practically builds from round 25 after that nail-biter, a 21-20 win at a core. Or round 2 away to the Melbourne Storm.
I don't know.
This could get interesting. It could get very interesting.
Years gone by, you would have said Melbourne would have kicked your ass.
Well, Melbourne have been kicking our ass. We have not beaten them since 2016.
But looking at the squad this season, there could actually be a potential chance of Bulldogs winning this one.
This will be mouth-watering. This will absolutely be a mouth-watering.
It's still going to be a tough task, don't get me wrong, but with the squad you guys got will be really, really good.
A Sunday afternoon at Belmore Sports Ground. I love this. A telecast game on Channel 9 up against the West Tigers.
That should be a victory for you guys.
Well, we've only had, one win at Belmore since we went back in 2015.
But still, it's
two wins. 2 wins at Belmore. But I think we're going to get at win number 3 for the first time in a while.
It is against the Tigers, so be realistic.
I will honestly think we can get a win here. Travel to Auckland to face the Warriors. They ambushed us last time and thought we were going to get the win, so I'm not going to underestimate the Warriors in New Zealand.
Yeah, but it's just what side of the Warriors we get.
And then to cap off round 5 at a core up against the Cowboys.
That's another test. 2 real big tests for the Bulldogs. Storm, Cowboys.
Well, we almost beat the Cowboys in Bundaberg, remember?
Yes.
We jumped out to an early lead against them.
But then,
until their bench kicked in and then rolled over the top of us.
Exactly. But
still, I reckon our bench will be just as good as theirs, so I reckon we'll win with a fair chance.
Yeah. The squad that they've got, the 2 biggest tests for you guys earlier on in the season is Storm and Cowboys. If you can get over those 2, you're in good contention.
Bad news is we've got to play Penrith in the final 9 rounds.
But hopefully by then you've built enough momentum over the season.
But so will they. Origin out of the
Yeah,
way.
true.
The
I know.
hangover, they'll probably be fully recovered on the hangover at that point. So, yeah.
But you never know. You just never know what the hell is going to happen.
Well, we're still a month away from the season beginning, so we'll see what happens there. But I'm liking what I'm seeing.
Same. I really am John. As much as I hate to go, this is on tape, so you can. I'm gonna probably regret saying this, but it's on tape. I'm actually gonna probably get on the Bulldogs bandwagon this season.
So you're gonna join me for a couple of home games this year?
Depending on work commitments.
No,
But
that always happens.
The
yeah.
Dragons are still going to be like main team, but some games that I might used to go like the Storm Bulldogs game. I thought, yeah, it's Storm, but then some games like those tighter games, we think maybe the Bulldogs might get the win. So like maybe the Storm game, I might lean towards the Bulldogs a bit more often than what I used to.
Now, Matt Burton, Reid Marnie, and Raymond Vitala Mariner have all been named captain. Yes, captains. One club captain and two on-field co-captains. So, what do we think about that?
Look, having we've got a leadership group of 6. It didn't really work that out for the Tigers, but again, it was the Tigers.
Yeah, it was.
But having your club captain of
Vitala Mariner,
Vitala
a
Mariner,
very good reward considering
yes,
he was almost forced into medical retirement.
And then your two on-field captains are Burton and Marnie. We know what Burton's capable of, and we know what Marnie's capable of. So that could actually work out very well. And Hooker and 5'8". Burton's 5'8".
Well, the benefit of having two on-field captains, well, with Burton and Marnie,
yeah,
he'll stay on the field for the whole game, and then Marnie might get
but Marnie's an 80-minute player too.
Laurie Daly was, fair to say, not impressed with this decision of the leadership group of 6. He sort of described it as not knowing who the leader was, if there was any genuine leadership at
That's
Belmore.
kind of like what it was at the Tigers when they had that 5-man leadership group. But what I was saying was the communication between Burton's a 5'8" player, yes, and the hooker will be key. And both, I think, Burton and Marnie are really good communicators with each other. Will be very good communicators with each other.
And then, of course, you'll have Josh Addo chirping his ear out the back.
Yes,
driving the standards.
The communication between Marnie and Burton will be the key. And if Burton calls for the ball, obviously Marnie will give it to him. But that'll be a really good thing to watch, Marnie and Burton. That's like a combination to watch this season, as well as Burton and Addo.
Players often thrive on getting the captaincy. Of course, Ben Hunt is a good example of a player thriving on getting the captaincy, playing much better than what he used to.
Yep.
But it could also backfire. I think with younger... Marnie's only got about 100 games under his belt. Burton, less. Is it often a risk appointing a young captain with less than 50 games experience?
Well, yes, but it could also reward you as well. It works both ways. It's a risk because he's had not a match experience, but it could be also a reward if they make it to the top 8 and into the finals.
That's just the only question I really do have about Matt Burton getting the captaincy right there. 56 games. That's how many he's got. So just about the 50 mark. Marnie more than 100. So, but I really like what I am seeing moving forward. I genuinely do love what I'm seeing. Now, last year the Bulldogs finished 12th on the ladder after a mid-season revival of sorts. Still got smacked around a bit, but were more convincing in a lot more games.
True.
I think the Bulldogs make the top 8. I genuinely think this will be
whereabouts?
Well, they finished 12th, so there's still going to be a whole host of quality sides out there that are going to really push hard to get those home finals positions. But I think the Bulldogs will finish 8th.
8th?
I think we'll squeak into the top 8.
Okay, so this is where I went wrong last year. I said the Bulldogs to finish 6th last year, and that didn't happen. They finished 6 positions lower than that. I think that I jumped the gun too early with this one. Like I said earlier on, Burton Addo, that made me think top 8 straight away. But they had a year to develop now. But now you've got the likes of Kikau and Marnie there, which are really big players as well as all your other signings, this is generally a top 8 team. And I think they are going to finish 5th on the ladder this year. I'm gonna say one better than last year. From my prediction last year, 5th.
So one that says squeak into the top 8 and 8th. The other that says the Bulldogs are going to get a home eliminator.
Yep. I'm going to say with confidence.
With confidence.
With confidence.
Wow, the man in the red V saying the blue and white army going to go deep into the finals, hopefully.
Like I said, I am actually going to go towards the Bulldogs a little bit more often. I generally think that they can do it this year.
Well, I do too, and I'm a registered member with them.
And like I said,
just a side
I've
note
got it on
quickly.
tape, so...
Interesting decision about Hayes Perham starting at fullback.
That is an interesting decision.
Apparently, he's had a very good preseason because my understanding was Avarillo was going to be fullback. And then, of course, Carraz is going to try and force his way depending on the contract. But now our door number 3 has just come from left field, and it's like, okay.
That'll be another thing that Serrano will probably watch at the trials, was who works better at fullback.
Well, Perham's a good utility player. You wouldn't want to leave him out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, either him, Brown, or Reynolds, whoever is going to be there.
But yeah, that'll be one thing to watch for in the preseason trials.
But a lot more of Jacob Carraz, a lot more of Jackson Torpenny, whether he starts or is off the bench.
And Avarillo.
But for Canterbury, this is going to be a year where we finally, properly turn the corner.
And I think the Bulldogs are really heading in the right direction. Seriously, they are heading in the right direction.
I want to believe that this time.
I think
seriously,
this is a bit of a bold statement to say this early on in the season, or even maybe season too early. But I think the premiership window's opening slightly this season.
Slightly. I'd give it a more fair chance, but that's a story for another day. Now, the Cronulla Sharks. An interesting year they had on record, didn't they?
Well, they certainly did. But I have to say, before we get into it, which is stating the obvious, buy of the season, Nicho Hynes.
Arguably, it was Nicho Hynes, but a shaky start for Cronulla down in Canberra. You thought they would have won it. But after that little trip up, they actually played very good. And of course, back at home, their proper home for the first time in 3 years.
Yes.
Is after all the redevelopments of the league's club. And Nicho Hynes didn't disappoint.
No, he's certainly
kicking the winning goal at Shark Park for the first home game in 3 years.
Yeah. What a way to welcome back to Shark Park with a win. And with the buy of the season as well, doing it.
And it wasn't just Hynes that was the buy of the year, because there was a lot of standout players for the Sharks.
Oh, yeah.
Dale Finucane, no-nonsense lock four, coming across. He did a good...
Yeah, 2 from Melbourne in the season. That's solid.
Dale Finucane was a very good buy, and of course, this one who was sort of like attained cult hero status virtually within the space of a month. Siosifa Talakai.
He just burst onto the scene. Especially when he had those few games at centre.
Well, that round 7 clash against the Sea Eagles was the craziest start to a game I've ever seen.
Crazy is an understatement.
Well, the Sharks just went nuclear. They went nuclear faster than you could say a Tom Trbojevic hamstring.
Exactly.
It was just like, this Sharks side, we knew there was some class about it, but then it's just like, they were slapping Manly from goalpost to goalpost for that opening first half.
It was crazy, absolutely crazy.
I mean, it was just like, what is this?
No one knew the answer. Honestly, no one knew the answer. What the hell was happening? But it was good on them, though. Like, it was what... They pretty much set what they were going to do for the rest of the season, I think.
And like many sides, they did not concede back-to-back losses all throughout the regular season. And they had more win streaks than you could count the Tigers' wins on. But a couple of hiccups against the Broncos. I definitely feel like they should have won that game, but fair credit to Brisbane. They were coming into their own at that point.
Yes.
Point in round 8. They lost to the Raiders. They should have won that one. Roosters, well, the Roosters were a class unto themselves.
Yes.
It was James Tedesco doing all the heavy lifting.
doing what he does best.
Whoa, Penrith. The second clash at Bluebet. That's the current.
Get it right.
Dolphin. Should he have been suspended for that hit? I mean, I looked at that in real-time speed and was like, that's not a dangerous contact. That was just a bloody good hit.
It was. That was... When I heard him get suspended, I thought, no.
That was rubbish. I believe we said so at the time as well, but that was absolutely rubbish.
Softest penalty in probably softest suspension in all of last season.
He couldn't have a fly, Dolphin.
No.
But that was just a bloody good tackle.
And just happened to be part of Crichton's ear falling off. But it's just a bloody solid hit.
That was the closest the Sharks
That's
ever got
what
to him.
rugby league is all about. Hard, solid hits like that.
But we punish that because player safety.
Yes.
In certain situations... Well, it depends the situation and the context. If he seriously took his head off, like a Jack Hetherington-style tackle...
Then yes,
or even a Tane Milne tackle where it's just like bang and nearly took the man's head off.
Yeah.
Then you send him off.
Yes.
But that wasn't it.
No.
We all saw he wrapped his arms around Crichton and then just collected him in heavy contact.
Which was just unfortunate where it hit.
Exactly. Absolutely. He turned the Sharks over. And then, of course, Ronaldo Montalvo. Literally the week later in Women League against the Bunnies, Dan Ganane produced probably the best soundbite of the year.
Yes. Have to agree.
That's the only thing I think of.
Yep, have to agree.
Or when Mulatalo plays. It's just like, Ronaldo!
That's it. That's it.
And again, another clutch nail-biting win from Nico Hines.
He's learnt that from the Melbourne system.
But the most disappointing part of the Sharks season
is when they got knocked out in
the
the finals.
finals campaign.
Yes.
An absolute classic qualifier match against the Cowboys where the result wasn't decided in regular time, wasn't decided in extra time, but it was decided in golden point. Which a 90-minute epic with the 2-point field goal from Valentine Holmes saw the Sharks go down 32-30.
But I have to say, that was probably the best game of season 2022.
That finals showdown, arguably. And of course, there was all the speculation because the Sharks wanted to play it at Shark Park rather than have it at Allianz. The NRL said, if you finish second, we'll give it to you. Well, they certainly did that. And it's just unfortunate they couldn't convert.
Yeah, but that was an absolute cracker of a game.
It absolutely was.
That's probably one of the best finals games in the past decade.
In 25 years' time, when the Golden Jubilee of the NRL comes around, that will probably be remembered.
Oh, bloody oath it will be.
Finals match.
Bloody oath it will be. And they'll play, come finals time this season, they'll probably play that over and over again.
That will be remembered if the Sharks make the finals again. And then, of course, they got bounced out by South Sydney in the semi-finals. But really no surprising. How many times has the Bunnies bounced someone out in the semi-final?
Yeah, plenty. But it was just disappointing of how the Sharks went.
Yeah.
I think having that 90-minute game cost the Sharks that win.
Oh, it did. It easily did.
It took them out. Just took it out of them.
It honestly did. Now, of course, the Dally M player, Nico Hines, was the best player for the Sharks, as it usually is the rule.
Well, it's best player of the year by the in the NRL. So.
6 tries, 21 try assists, 2,949 run meters, 65 tackle breaks, 6 line breaks, 36 offloads, 21 goal line dropouts, and 83 from 112 goals converted.
Very sharp shooter. He pretty much controlled the Sharks' attack.
And the fact he's on $450,000 a year.
His next contract will be...
The Sharks, they were laughing picking him up when they
very cheaply. His next contract will probably be nudging up near $1 million. Well, maybe not quite $1 million, but it'll be nudging it.
I would easily think somewhere between $700,000 and $850,000. Easily.
I reckon go $850,000 to $900,000.
Well, Dalian medal, top 2 finish. What more could you ask from Hines? And Craig Fitzgibbon's first year as a head
what
coach.
would have been better was the grand final win.
Oh, everyone would have thought, could this be the Sharks'
second premiership?
Second best tilt at a premiership title?
But no.
Not yet. But
No.
there is a heavy possibility that I think the Sharks' premiership window is opening up again.
And Lockie, just before I cut you off, Craig Fitzgibbon's first year as coach, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Ultimately, way better than Adam O'Brien if we're talking Roosters assistant coaches that picked up a gig elsewhere.
Yes.
Honestly, way better.
Yeah.
Now, the Sharks in 2023, round 1, up against the Bunnies at home.
Rematch time.
Well, talk about playing your next game against the same opponent that bundled you out of the finals.
Sharks will be out for revenge big time.
And it's the Bermuda Triangle, so who knows what the result could end up as. Round 2, travelling to Combank to play the Eels. They
Another
have not
tough game.
been able to beat the Eels at Combank. And so far, and I believe this is currently from 2 attempts.
Well, that's still going to be another tough game, though. Like, I'm going to say
Contenders.
Contenders
would be the right term.
But 2 mouth-watering games for the Sharks straight out of the blocks. That's solid.
Round 3, travelling to the nation's capital, up against the Warriors. The Raiders.
Raiders.
Sorry. I was jumping the gun.
But yeah, like you said earlier on, it's a bit of a bogey side of war. Now you got me saying it. The Raiders in Canberra.
Professional standards, ladies and gentlemen. The professional standards of the Studio 13 gang that bring you the Sideline Chat podcast.
Yes. But yes, it's a bit of a bogey side, the Raiders in Canberra for them.
Round 4, they'll travel to Cogra to face St. George Illawarra.
Well, you know who the hell I'm going to go
Local
for.
derby games. You'll be supporting the Sharks, no doubt.
No! The mighty Red V, of course, mate.
What, the Red V that ends yourself in jail, or the one that ends up in hospital? So he's just died at the moment. His soul has just died. Do you need a lawyer? A counsellor? A lawyer?
You just shut up about the
A doctor?
Shakers. I need something.
Not sure that I should be joking about Cody Ramsey, but
No.
every time you end up at the police station, I feel like you deserve to be mocked. The Dragons deserve mocked.
2 of our players been there now. 2!
Well, it's better than barbecues.
They're technically end up at police stations there too, so that's maybe about 3.
Well, at least they're not busting up barbecues.
True. Anyway,
How many sausages do you have on at the moment?
None. Because they're all burnt.
They all left. They all walked out because they either got sacked or they got stood down.
Moving on.
Now, this is where the Warriors was coming in. The second home game of the year on a beautiful Saturday afternoon in Cronulla. I reckon at least
I'll be packed
4
out.
and 1. 4 and 1, maybe 3 and 2.
Packed out against
Shark
the
Park.
Warriors. Yeah, packed out.
It will
Shark
be.
Park.
Shark Park always a draw, so good.
And
crowd.
it was the first home game against South, so that'll be packed out too.
I reckon it will be.
But yeah.
Now, decision time. Do we see the Sharks dropping or improving? From where they
We
were?
missed the rosters.
Oh yes, the roster very quick.
The
Aiden Tolman and Andrew Fafita, club legend, both retired. Hiring at the end of last year, Lachlan Miller joining the Newcastle Knights as the Daily Telegraph.
Unofficial confirmed.
Unofficial.
Officially unconfirmed.
But the Daily Telegraph did mention in the preseason watch that Miller has joined.
Yeah.
The Knights.
It's the worst kept secret at rugby league at the moment.
I think there have been worse kept secrets more than that.
But still.
Franklin Pele joining the Canterbury Bulldogs and Luke Metcalf making the move across to the Warriors.
And the signees front, Oregon Confuci from Parramatta.
And Max Bradbury from the Newcastle Knights, which if Miller's at the Knights, then Bradbury's at the Sharks.
Bradbury! Yes.
Yeah, not Stephen Bradbury, where he just comes from behind and wins everything.
Yes. Although Newcastle could.
They let him go.
Well, sorry, the Sharks could then.
But that was the other part. The Sharks are laughing here because it's like, even though the Knights are getting a Rugby 7 star, and a pretty decent fullback in his own right.
Well, just look how well he did in his debut game.
It was quoted that the Sharks are practically getting a 10-year forward.
Yeah.
That he could be part of the Sharks' long-term plans moving forward.
Yep.
So I think it's, again, the Sharks are on the good end of a bad deal the Knights have done.
Well, it is Newcastle, though. So.
Well, yeah, it is Newcastle. They are known for bad deals.
Yes.
Nathan Tinkler, anyone? Now, getting back to the Sharks, where do we see them finishing in 2023?
Look, I'd like to see him take it out, like, again. Well, you know, claim the minors, but I don't think they'll be able to claim the minor premiership. But they finished second last year. I just got a feeling they'll just slip down that one notch and finish in third on the ladder. It's just too competitive to pick a top four.
Well, last year the Sharks finished in second and were knocked out in the semi-finals. Based on what I think and what we're going to be saying over the next 3 weeks, I think the Sharks stay where they are. I think they will finish second for the second year running.
Fair enough.
I don't think there'll be any idea of a second-year syndrome for anyone at the moment. I think they're too good to suffer that. But I don't see them taking out the minor premiership either.
Not quite yet.
Not just yet. But that's where the Sharks will be. I think they'll still be really close to a second-place finish.
Oh, yeah, easy.
Now, the team with no name, the Dolphins.
Team with a no name.
Well, they are a team with no name. And that's pretty much a fact. They don't have a region that they identify with.
Which is stupid, because I thought that would have gone as Redcliffe Dolphins.
Well, I was thinking to make them more geographically bigger than Redcliffe, just call themselves the Moreton Bay Dolphins.
Yeah, but they don't want to do that either, so...
Well, I think that was their own decision. The NRL's pretty much respecting it at this point. Of course, they are the 17th team to join the NRL's expansion bid.
The first new team since the Gold Coast Titans in 2007.
Yep, that's exactly right.
So it's been over 10 years.
Wayne Bennett in charge of the helm for this first
with
couple
Christian
of years.
Wolf under his wing,
Yep,
who took St. Helens to 3 of their 4 back-to-back titles.
Yes, Christian Wolf certainly did that, and of course he will complete... Well, he can always learn. Even though you've won 3 titles off your own back, you still have room to learn and grow.
And you know what?
Learning from the best coach, probably the greatest of all time.
I don't know. People argue.
I know,
people argue with
Bellyache. There's going to be saying, Bellyache, you dickhead. He's the greatest of all time. And then if there's any, and then of course all the fans will be like, oh, get lost. Jack Gibson. Easily Jack Gibson's the super coach.
Yeah.
And then they'd be like, no, Clive Churchill. He's an immortal. None of these clowns are immortals. It is Clive Churchill, the little master of South Sydney.
Anyway, but yeah.
But yeah, no, Wayne Bennett. For all the talk, I mean, everyone's saying Bellyache's the current super coach, but Wayne is the greatest.
Oh, I had to agree with Wayne.
Wayne Bennett is the greatest coach
Wayne
of
Bennett.
our generation. Well, at the moment, he is the greatest.
Yep.
7-time premiership winner.
6 with the Broncos, 1 with the Dragons.
From 9 grand final attempts.
Could have been 8-time premiership winner in 2015 with the Brisbane Broncos against
or
the
even
Cowboys.
1987 when he was dual coach with Don Ferner at the Raiders.
Yes.
That's the part everyone forgets to mention. He started out at Canberra before building a dynasty at the Broncos, a 20-year dynasty, which saw 6 premierships yielded in that time.
Yes. Yep. And he did nothing with Newcastle.
Well, 1 finals appearance because he had problems with the roster and Nathan Tinkler.
Yeah.
Of course, St. George Illawarra, or what was it? 3 finals appearances, 1 minor premiership, 1 premiership, or was it 2 minor premiership, 1 premiership, 1 World Club Challenge?
2 minors. I think we got the minors in
1
09.
premiership, 1 World Club Challenge title, bowed out in this Golden Point semi-final loss to the Broncos and Darren Lockyer.
Yes. Please don't remind me.
Then, of course, he went to South after a second stint at the Broncos where...
Wasn't as good as his first.
Well, grand final in his first year, a semi, a prelim, and then an eliminator to finish off his time. And then, of course, it was at the Rabbitohs, it was all straight prelims and one grand final appearance.
Yes.
Took a year off. He'll probably recalibrated his tactics, everything, as well as build a roster.
Yes. And he's having some issues with that, but he's done well with the new club. So
Yeah, a little bit slow to build the roster, but I think everyone's still criticizing him because he has no superstars on his name. But
that's not his fault. Everyone keeps turning against him.
Well, it's not just that, but I think clubs were... I think the moment there was the push, right? The Dolphins won Paul Green to coach him before, unfortunately,
yes,
he, with his brain injury, with sort of the problems with his brain, he had brain damage that unfortunately led him to take his own life.
Yes, which was a massive shock.
They wanted Paul Green to lead the Dolphins because they were worried if Wayne Bennett was appointed, 16 clubs would be hip to Wayne's techniques in recruitment, and they'd be very quick to try and block or re-sign all the star players they could before Wayne got to them.
Oh, I didn't think about it that way.
That's what the Dolphins were wary. You think of it. Marnie, Tino, Harry Grant, and Ponga, Munster. All
Hughes.
The top... Jerome Hughes. All the big-name players in the NRL, Wayne could have lured to the Dolphins. Every club made sure to lock them up as soon as they could.
Yeah. Some took longer than others.
And even Ryan Madison, and he was offered the captaincy as well.
Yeah,
which is rather surprising.
But obviously you can see something at Parramatta.
Yeah,
but being a new club too, like a non-established club in the NRL, that would turn a lot of people as well because you don't know what they're going to be like. It's going to take a year or two to get things going.
Well, regardless of how they have gone, this is the side they have so far assembled.
Well, they got no losses, so that's pretty easy.
Well, it's not necessarily the losses. These are all the players in and around
the
the side.
Well, it's a new club, so there's going to be no losses, you muppet.
Foundation squad for the first NRL side. Albert Kelly, of course, joining from the Brisbane Broncos, but he will be with the Host Plus Cup side for now. Anthony Milford joining from the Newcastle Knights. Little in doubt that he would back out on that deal. Branko Lee from the Broncos. Ewan Aiken from the Warriors. Edric Lee, also from the Knights, joining. Felice Kafusi from the Melbourne Storm. Hamaso Tabuai-Fidow from the Cowboys. Harrison Graham. Herman Esiesi joining from Gold Coast. Isaiah Katoa joining from Penrith. Jack Bostock on the development list from St. George Illawarra. Jermaine Asako joining from the Gold Coast via the Broncos. Jared Wallace from the Titans. Jeremy Marshall-King from the Dogs. Jesse Bromwich from the Storm. JJ Collins from Tweed Heads. Kenny Bromwich from the Storm. Cody Nikarima and Mark Nichols from the Rabbitohs. Mason Teague from the Panthers. Michael Lawrence. Oliver Gildart from the West Tigers. Pawasa Farmasili from St. George Illawarra. Ray Stone from Parramatta. Robert Jennings from Penrith. Ryan Jackson from Wynnum Manly, Sean O'Sullivan from Penrith, Tessie New from the Broncos, Tom Gilbert from the Cowboys, and Valence T. Vare. That's all the names the Dolphins currently have in their roster, development list, or reserve grade side.
That's it.
Including those who might be on trade and trial, but they are very, very much a lot of names with that.
Yes, and a lot of, I have familiar names that we're with. Some not so familiar, but more familiar than not. And some with a heap of experience, like the Bromwich brothers and Kafusi and Milford.
There have been accusations that this is practically a dad's army forward pack they're putting together, where all the players are either in their 30s or they are coming off serious injury. On the whole, the Bromwiches, Kafusi, Jared Wallace, Big Herman. But then you get the more youthful side. Ray Stone, of course, the 2-try hero in his last game to the Eels, beating the Storm. Tom Gilbert really came into his own and is a Queensland Origin rep. Sean O'Sullivan, very shrewd signing from the Panthers, as well as Hamaso Tabuai-Fidow from the Cowboys, with the promise of playing fullback. And I think, really, for Oliver Gildart, a second chance saloon after his time at the Tigers and loan stint at the Roosters didn't go the way he hoped for.
Yeah.
And this is what I've been telling you in private, as well as generally speaking. it doesn't matter if Wayne doesn't have a superstar for his first year.
No, of course not.
What he has, and I think he has succeeded in this front, building a side to win more games than what you will lose. The superstars will come. It's winning games that truly, truly matters.
Exactly. I don't think they're going to get a lot of wins this season, but they will get. They'll bag a win or two. Well, probably more than 2 wins, but like they'll get some wins under their belt. It's just a matter of who are against and how they do it.
Well, that is the question, because this is the 25th year of the National Rugby League, and of course there have been a lot of expansion sides really come and go over the course of 25 years. From the first 20, that was the result of the joint venture between the ARL Optus Cup and the Super League back Telstra Cup, reunifying after a year apart. The Super League war that came and went. It has changed a lot.
It certainly has. Like the competition has changed itself. The competitiveness has changed a lot. Younger players starting, players starting at a younger age than ever before. It's players going well into their 30s nowadays instead of in the early 30s. It's just so different.
Well, what I essentially mean by that is that there have been a lot of changes to sides ever since 1998. I mean, think of it. In 1998, there were 20 teams. Can you believe that? 20 teams that made up the National Rugby League.
And now there's 17.
Well, from all the current ones we have at the moment, the West Tigers, there was no West Tigers. There was Balmain and Western Suburbs.
St. George, Illawarra Dragons.
There was St. George, and then there was Illawarra. There was Manly and North Sydney in their own right. Or the Warriors weren't New Zealand, they were Auckland.
Yes.
Before they went broke, and then they rebranded as the Warriors with a new consortium. There was Adelaide. Gold Coast were known as the Chargers. And the Melbourne Storm were relatively new, were the top guns in those days.
Was there a Perth team in amongst all that as well?
Western Reds collapsed in 97.
Oh, close.
But the top contenders in 1998, Newcastle, with the immortal Andrew Johns, the best halfback of his day. The Broncos, obviously, no surprises there.
No.
North's Parramatta and the Roosters were probably amongst the best sides in the 90s, as well as Canterbury and Canberra.
Yeah.
They were the absolute strength of it right there. But I want to get on to the Dolphins in particular, because there's always the question when the new sides come in, how their results panned out in contrast.
Well, yeah, it's going to be good to see how well they're going to go. They're not going to come out all guns blazing.
No,
they're gonna make their way into it, and Wayne Bennett. Everyone's going to probably put pressure on Wayne Bennett, but I don't think he will collapse under the pressure. Well, he'll be used to the pressure because he was there when Brisbane Broncos were at the absolute best.
Well, what I have here, we have now 25 years of new teams coming in. I'm not counting the Rabbitohs or Manly because they were teams that were readmitted rather than being completely new teams. But this is the result of over the last 25 years, every new side that has joined. First off, in 1998, the Melbourne Storm, the first new side to join under the new National Rugby League banner, first team in Victoria. No one expected anything much from them. They finished third on the ladder in their first year alone, with a 17-6-1 record, 17 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw in their first year. And they went as far as the preliminary final, going down to the Brisbane Broncos.
Yeah.
That is a massive achievement.
And that's what started how they are today, really.
And then, of course, they won the premiership a year later against St. George Illawarra Dragons in 1999, a joint venture, the first one of its kind between St. George and Illawarra, which some have suggested was a St. George conspiracy to preserve themselves else from the culls that were going to happen to many Sydney clubs ahead of 2000.
I heard it's because Illawarra were going to go broke, so they'd merge.
Well, St. George were fine, but they realised if they merged with Illawarra, they would be classed as a regional team rather than a Sydney team.
Well,
thus, that's the suggested conspiracy. They survived the cull, that plagued Balmain, Wests, Manly, Norths, and the fact that South Sydney got expelled.
Yes.
And of course, the Dragons finished with a 15-9 record in 1999, finishing in the grand final, although Jamie Ainscough denied them a premiership.
Yes, unfortunately.
In 2000, two new joint ventures came in, of course, the West Tigers and the Northern Eagles. Of course, the Northern Eagles, the result of Manly and Norths, and was a disaster from the start.
Yes. And that still kind of has a carry-on effect today.
Of course, the Tigers finished 11-13 with 2 draws. Of course, in 2000, finishing 10th on the ladder, the Eagles finished in 12th with a 9-17 record. And finally, in 2007, the introduction of the Gold Coast Titans, a 10-14 record in 2007, their first year on record. So, those are the markers by which every new side, barring the reintroduction of South and Manly, have performed in 25 years.
So, pretty high standards, I suppose.
As high as Melbourne's 98 season to as low as the Eagles' 2000.
Or what about Gold Coast?
I already said Gold Coast.
Sorry. They finished where, sorry? 12th.
So, the Dolphins in the first 5 rounds. Excuse me. Oh, God.
Spit it out.
I will.
We've got the first home game up at
Suncorp Stadium on a
Sunday afternoon.
I must be getting firstly talking for an hour and a half straight. Against the Roosters for the Arthur Beetson Cup.
The newly established Arthur Beetson Cup.
Yep, this is something they wanted to happen for years. Redcliffe versus the Roosters. I believe Arthur Beetson wanted this to happen before, but never happened. But now, his the Immortals' great wish shall be honoured.
Yep.
Round 2, they will be at KO Stadium in Redcliffe for a home game against the Canberra Raiders.
Didn't mean to finish off and you shut up.
I got this. And if I have to hiccup my way to the end, I will hiccup my way to the end. Round 3 will be their first away trip up against the Newcastle Knights.
Which I wouldn't mind going to see just to see how well they play.
Oh, it's the Dolphins. They'll be the new buzz of the town, the new kids on the block.
Yeah.
Round 4 will be the Battle of Brisbane back at home against the Broncos.
Yep.
And in round 5, a trip to the Gong to face St. George Illawarra.
Very good. So, not the easiest of starts for the Dolphins because you got the Roosters involved in that. Brisbane's going to be tough for them. And Canberra might be a bit tough. Same with the Dragons. But
well, this is a clean slate the Dolphins are working with.
Yes, I know that. But they might have the win against... who do you have? Roosters, Brisbane,
Canberra, Newcastle.
Newcastle could be the only win in the first
or
opening week.
St. George Illawarra.
I don't think so. Come on. Of course I'm going to go with my team against a new club. But yes, I think Newcastle could be
1-4 or 2 and.
I'm going to say 1-4 to start the season for Dolphins.
And the answer will be the Dragons will be the first team to lose.
No, it will be Newcastle.
No, it's going to be the Dragons.
No, Newcastle, because Newcastle are worse than the Dragons.
It's going to be the Dragons. The Knights are going to kick your ass this year.
Oh, please.
It's going to happen. Believe me.
Please.
It's going to happen.
Please.
You're going to be known as the first team that lost to the Dolphins.
No, we're not.
Yes, you are.
Because we get an extra week off than everyone else starts to start off the season.
It's only round 1. That doesn't apply.
It's still an extra week off, which will benefit us.
Dolphins. First win.
Anyway, final prediction time. I think the Dolphins will finish... They're not going to finish 17th, but I think they're going to finish about 14th on the ladder. I'm not putting them too high on the ladder, being their first season, but I'm not going to put them too low and make them sound shit. Because I don't think they will be. So
I reckon
14th,
a pass
I
for the
think
Dolphins
is reasonable.
in 2023. A pass for them will be at least 8 wins. I think 8 wins is realistically achievable.
It's a tough ask, though.
But I reckon they could surprise a lot of sides because we don't know what to expect with them.
Exactly.
They're not going to play finals straight away. And hardly anyone ever does play finals in the first year. But
if they do, what a bloody story that will be.
But we'll see what happens. I agree with you. I think the Dolphins will finish in 14th.
Wow.
Now,
That's a hiccup in your way through.
On that bombshell, it is full time from us.
I mean, the hiccup
if you like
shell.
this video or this podcast or the ones from last week, make sure you leave us a like, hit that subscribe button, and click the bell for notifications so
And
you
for more
never
hiccups.
miss a week of rugby league action. Don't forget to give us a follow on our social media pages on Facebook and on Instagram is at Sideline Chat, and on Twitter is at Sideline Chat RL. One of our hashtags alongside Side Chat YT. Thanks for staying with us for this hour and a half podcast edition for the NRL. I know it's a lot to get through. We do appreciate you listening every week in and out. We'll be back next week
With 4 teams, not 5.
Yes. As we'll be back. Can the Titans correct the wrongs of last year?
No.
And what will be the fates of Manly and Melbourne moving forward?
1 up, 1 down.
Good. And what controversy will the Warriors cause now?
I don't know.
Neither do I, but stay tuned. Because along with Mark Henry, I'm Connor Marcellus, and you have been listening to the Sideline Chat. We'll see you next week.
See you next week, and that's Connor Hiccup Marcellus.